church is an embassy, I believe. It's where we as ambassadors go to refresh, we go to be healed. It's our hospital, so to speak, our spiritual hospital, at least it should be. We should be there to love one another and encourage one another and lift up one another instead of comparing ourselves to one another. And so, that's important. We're a nation of kings and priests. So the church is like our tabernacle. It's like our embassy. Just like the tabernacle was kind of an embassy for the kingdom. It was where Yahweh met with the people. And it shows us how Yeshua is the purpose. That he is the sacrifice. Like there was the sacrifice on the altar in the outer court. And then being baptized, we are being cleansed. It's a symbol of our death, spiritual death, that we can be reborn, be born again. Then we have read, pray, and obey. And then, of course, you have the Holy of Holies, where Yeshua will take us one day. As our high priest, he will take us into the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. And like that read, pray, and obey, I refer you to Ezra 7, chapter 7, verse 10, where it says, "For Ezra had his heart to study the law of the Lord," which we should be doing, read and study, "and to practice," that's obedience, "and to teach his statutes and ordinances." We are a nation of kings and priests, and Ezra was a scribe. And you can read in Nehemiah where he is reading the law, the Torah, to the people. Particularly in Nehemiah 8, that at on the first day of the 7th month, Nehemiah 8, verse 4, it says, "Ezra the scribe stood at a wooden podium which they had made for the purpose, and beside him stood," and then verse 6, "Then Ezra blessed the Lord, the great God, and all the people answered, Amen, Amen, while lifting up their hands. Then they bowed low and worshipped the Lord with their faces to the ground." That kind of tells you what worship is. And you read later on in that chapter, starting in verse 13. Of course, well, you see that they kept the Feast of Booths again. When Ezra was reading that about them being in booths, and they made booths, and it shows you what they used. That they used branches and other leaves to make booths, as it is written. But they had gathered together first day. Well, what was the first day of the 7th month? That is Yom Teruah. So, they were learning again, and as a nation of kings and priests, we are ambassadors for that kingdom. We are ambassadors for the kingdom, and by keeping the holy days, we invite people to the wedding by doing things in Yahweh's name, in the way we treat people, and keeping the Sabbath and the holy days, and loving people, our love for people. We are ambassadors, just like the priests were ambassadors and showed the people the way to Yahweh. Because it was a pattern of the true tabernacle, which I believe is the universe. This being the earth being the outer court, which is why it was given to the Gentiles. Then you have the air, which would be the second heaven, and then you have outer space being the third heaven, and it declares the glory. I mean, you look throughout the universe, you look at all these nebula and all this stuff, and just be amazed by it. But the church should be an embassy. But don't by no means think that just because it's an embassy of the kingdom doesn't mean it's going to be a safe place when persecution comes. Because in many countries, the churches are burnt to the ground because of hatred for people and hatred for that we will be hated. Get used to it. That's the new norm. That's the normal for believers. I mean, you can look at the Crusades and the Inquisition and see how people were treated because they broke away from the Catholic Church. The hate that was there, the tortures. You can read Fox's Book of Martyrs to see some of the things that were done. But all those things aren't as important. You know, it's the kingdom. Some of us will suffer. Some of us may be kept from the suffering, like the Church of Philadelphia. Some of us are going to suffer like the Church of Smyrna. But we have to be, as churches being embassies, that should be where it should be our hospital. That should be where we show love, and we should show love out to each other outside of the church, of course. But the church should be a place where we are different than the world. As ambassadors, we should be different from the world. That's one of the things why modesty and head covering is so powerful a testimony, I believe, for women, because of the way a lot of them get chastised by other women because, oh, you're oppressed. No, they have a love for Yahweh, so much so that they will do whatever He convicts them to do. Some have the conviction, some don't, but you know, just like wearing beards. Some of us have conviction to have beards, some do not. Some have the conviction to have tzitzits, which are the little tassels. Some don't. You know, to me, this is part of being an ambassador. This is part of being an ambassador. This is part of being an ambassador. How I treat people, loving people, that's part of ambassadorship. And the church needs to be the embassy. It needs to be the light of this world. As Yeshua was the light of the world, because He kept Torah perfectly, and He was the promised Messiah, as His disciples, we should be a light. We need to be a light. We need to be different. We need to be set apart from this world. We need to keep the holy days to invite, as part of inviting people to the wedding. Our love for one another invites people to the wedding. Please, let's consider these things as we go to churches and as we live our daily lives. Realize we are ambassadors for the kingdom, and the church should be our embassy on this earth. So just some food for thought. Shalom, shalom. May Yahweh bless and keep you and make His face shine upon you and give you peace.